Welcome into Eye on Northeast Kansas, the podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Bruner. This is where we recap some of those top interviews you've been hearing on Eye on Northeast Kansas, the TV show. It comes to you streaming live Monday through Friday, 4 o'clock Central Time from our WIBW studios in the capital of Kansas, the great city of Topeka. We have had a lot of winter weather around the state of Kansas this season, and it seems like it keeps on keeping on. A recent snowfall of more than 14 inches within the city of Topeka had people reevaluating city officials under some great criticism for just how they handled that storm. So as more snow was heading our way, and we have yet more snow in the forecast, we took a look at how they were revisiting, perhaps changing the way they responded with Topeka City Manager Robert Perez. He also talked a bit more about one idea he had for shoring up the city's projected deficit in the budget and how he's kind of backed up that. Here's what we had to say in that conversation. We are having this discussion on the heels of a lot of criticism that we've talked about that the city encountered following the 14-inch snowfall earlier. Here we are in February with another major snowfall. What changes has the city made, if any, in its snow response?
Yeah, so as far as the preparations, we're kind of following the same game plan. We are treating, and we've already treated our major arterial collector roadways, our emergency routes. We are ready to go into the neighborhoods if need be. We do have that policy looking at the 6-inch.
I was going to say, what is the threshold
right,
of whether or not you go to the
neighborhoods?
6-inch
threshold, and so obviously we'll be monitoring the weather to see how it plays out. One of the things that we have done, a couple of things we've done differently in preparation. We actually, the Monday of that major snow event, we actually had put out an emergency request for proposals from additional contractors. That was one of the things that people, suggested. It was something that we already had in the works. I can tell you that we do have one additional contractor that will probably be available for us in the event that they are needed. And so we have that ready to go. The other thing, I know that there was some questions about what our contractors are doing, and so one of the things that we did pivoting during the event was pulling out our inspections, our project inspections team to help monitor the contractors. Just trying to get more resources to us in the event that they are needed is one of the big things that we're doing differently this time.
Do we know how many additional trucks that second contractor might be able to bring to the table?
Possibly six, possibly up to six more. So last time our contractor gave us up to 7, so it's almost doubling our contractor availability. We're also reaching out to Shawnee County and to the townships around us to see if there might be opportunities for mutual aid in the event that it's needed.
Is there a better system for tracking where people have and haven't been this time around?
So,
and when they've had to skip a street?
So one of the things that we were underway with was trying to get our additional GPS capabilities. Unfortunately, that's probably not something that we'll have in the near future. We did debrief with our city council last week on the January event, and we showed just some anomalies in how the GPS system, our current GPS system, is tracking our vehicles. One other thing with the future GPS system that we want to have in place, we'll be able to put devices within our contractors' vehicles to help track that. But again, that's not something that we'll have available.
Not for this snow event,
That's
perhaps
correct.
in the future. Let me ask you about the budget situation. We had discussions, an initial briefing a week or two ago with the City Council. You'd mentioned previously this idea of using perhaps a special sales tax that would go towards shoring up a projected budget shortfall in 26-27. Is that still the idea, and how much would that sales tax be?
So as of right now, that's still the idea. We were supposed to ask City Council to consider that item tomorrow evening. But based upon some public feedback that we got, based upon feedback from the City Council, I believe that it's probably not the right timing to try to bring that forward. There's definitely some things that we need to shore up, and we need to show the community that we're doing our part, such as selling the Hotel Topeka is definitely one of my priorities for this year. But then there's also some reductions and efficiencies that we probably need to enact.
So to be clear, what you're saying is that plan to perhaps put forward a vote on a special sales tax to bridge the budget gap, not going to go forward now?
No, and not tomorrow, no. I would still like for us to consider it in the future, because that sales tax is not just to shore up current operations, but also to put things forward. The vision anyways is to put funding forward for things that we don't currently have funding for, such as affordable housing and also for homelessness efforts.
So we'll continue to explore that. Hotel Topeka, since you brought it up, and we're kind of running short on time, there's going to be a request for yet more funding for Hotel Topeka tomorrow. Right. That'll bring it up to what, about $2.2 million. Are we going to sell this thing when? What's the delay? What's going on?
So yes, we are going to sell it. As mentioned, it's one of my priorities for this year. Has been reported previously, there's 6 offers that we have on the table. We're seriously vetting a number of those. I'm hoping here no later than the second quarter of the year we can have something viable to City Council for consideration and for action. Our whole thing is, yes, there's 6 offers, but we need to ensure that we have the best offer possible for us and for our community.
How confident are you at least one of those offers will be good enough?
Very confident.
Okay, well, we will stay tuned, as they say. Dr. Robert Perez, appreciate the update. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
So, of course, those budget talks will continue. We're talking the 2026 budget, so they've been starting these conversations early for feedback like this to see what other ideas they might be able to come up with. Also, just getting started on their talks about the budget are the state lawmakers, the state legislatures. Senate President Ty Masterson visited the studio to give us an update on how he believes the session has been going so far.
It is new, right? We have, and that was an intentional effort by the Speaker and myself to get us back within the constitutional 90 days. Our Kansas Constitution calls for a 90-day session. And I mean, some states do 60 days. There's even a few that do 30. And so we thought there's no reason we can't pull within it. But it's feeling different to those that are incumbent, have been there a while, because this pace, it does make you get your work done. And so there is this sense of urgency, but that's a good thing. Truth is, I mean, the longer we're there, it's not like we get better and better at what we do. You people tend to get a little irritated. So the pace is quick, but I feel we're doing well. We're doing well.
We've already got property tax issues up for debate. You've been discussing a bill that eliminates the school property tax mill levy at the state level, and then also you have up for debate a proposed constitutional amendment. What's that about, and what is the intent there? So,
a little bit of a nuance there. It's actually the mill levy that the state imposes is for institutional buildings. The House is talking a little bit about the school mills, but it's really we did eliminate the state's mill and a half. I mean, that just out of principle. I don't want to. I mean, it's $60 million worth of property tax relief, but that's statewide. But I don't want anybody to feel like, oh, we implemented this big relief, because it's only $1.5 million. So individually, it's not going to feel like a lot. We feel, particularly in the Senate, the real answer is a constitutional amendment, especially as it pertains to kind of the out of control appraisal values. Especially we saw COVID, and the thing we're trying to really drill down on is the particularly fixed income elderly people that have, you're basically being taxed on unrealized gains, right? And that's what ends up taxing you out of your house. So this constitutional amendment would cap that at 3%, and so you could manage that.
Why does that need to be a constitutional amendment, do you feel? And really, this does address, when we've asked local officials, what can you do about property tax relief? They say they are governed by rules that are set by the state legislature, so you all need to do something about it.
Right, and so you're right, it's the point to the other guy, and that's why it has to be a constitutional amendment. The way property is valued comes from the Constitution. That way ag ground is separate. That was a constitutional amendment. And so the only way for us to do that is to do it through constitutional amendment. Because what effectively happens, in order to protect that low income or that fixed income from massive appraisals, you have to be able to value or assess two properties slightly differently. And some of that is just the difference between you bought yesterday and he bought 30 years ago, or she bought 30 years ago. So not that her income changed, but it just has to be addressed through the Constitution.
One bill already on the way to the governor bans gender-affirming care for minors. Why did you feel that issue was important enough to truly fast-track it and make it the first big bill passed? Well,
see, it appeared fast-tracked this year, but that was hashed and rehashed over. The Senate's passed it 3 years in a row, and the language really hasn't changed. And we really came within just one vote 2 votes, I think, in the House ultimately from a complete supermajority override. The Senate even overrode it last year, and the elections were very telling. So we just thought we just wanted it off the plate. We've dealt with it. It's a very important issue. I mean, there's kids on conveyor belts into that process right now, and the sooner we did it, the better.
Way out for me, one objection people have, though, is that one argument you use for some other proposals is less governmental involvement. Parents should be able to decide. Why can't parents just decide this issue? Why does it need state legislation? Well,
the same reason we don't think it's a parental right to abuse your kid. Right? You don't have a parental right to abuse a child, and that's really what it's seen at in the broader public. Even you are taking, if you really truly love that child, you're going to let them work through that process. I'm not discounting that some children are suffering from dysphoria, but if you really love them, you're going to help them walk through that and love who they are. You're not going to answer that with permanent surgery, and that's understood by a broad group in the population. It's incredibly popular with the people, and so it was just time. You don't have a right to abuse a child.
Anytime we talk about money issues, spending, people think the government spends too much, but they also want to see property tax relief and they don't want to lose their programs. So all these things are rolling around. You started at a unique way to get feedback, kind of like DOGE at the federal level that President Trump started. What are you doing locally, and what's the response been already?
So DOGE was taken, so we got KDHE. I got a committee on government efficiency.
Committee on government
efficiency, and it's a similar purpose. Now, we're not going to find, $50 million for condoms in Gaza like they did at DOGE, but we're going to find opportunities. And to your question, we opened the portal just last Friday, so you can go to the legislative website. There's a portal to input. There's also a specific email, and I'm probably going to mess it up.
But we can find it all at kslegislature.org.
Yes, so that'd be great. Go there, and it's Kansas KDHE, and we just opened the portal on Friday without really promoting it, and we had almost 500 submissions by Monday morning. And so we're excited for what I want people to input. So I would even say to your listeners, if you're engaging with the Kansas government in any way that you feel that could be done better, and it could be something as simple as licensing, permitting, your thing, whatever it is, we want to know about it, because if we can make it better, we want to do that.
We'll have to catch up later and find out what more of those ideas are on the list. Senator Ty Masterson, appreciate you being here and catching up on the legislative session. You heard us talk a little bit in that interview about the gender-affirming care for minors, that bill sent to the governor. Since our conversation with Senator Masterson, the governor has vetoed that measure, and we are told that an attempt to override the governor's veto should be coming up in the days ahead. So depending when you're listening to this conversation, of course, just keep following that developing story that we have here in the Kansas Capitol. We also had a chance to talk goals with some of our top law enforcement officials in the state of Kansas. KBI Director, Kansas Bureau of Investigation Director Tony Mativi. He visited the studio to update a few things that they have been focusing on.
Thank you, Melissa.
February, but we haven't seen each other yet this year.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Let's talk about Amber Alert, because this is a system that's been around in our state and in the nation for so many years already. But you had something happen last fall. What did we do to our state's Amber Alert system?
We are very grateful to the Information Network of Kansas. They gave us grant funding that allowed us to make our Amber coordinator a full-time person at the agency, and they allowed us to upgrade our technology to cut out a number of steps in the process. To remind everybody, an Amber is an alert that we issue whenever we have a child who has been abducted and we know that they're in grave danger. So it's a very, very narrow set of circumstances that fit that. But when we issue an Amber, that's because a child is in danger of losing their life. And we know that 3 hours is the critical time period in getting that alert out and getting the public's help in trying to bring that child home. So any way that we can make that process quicker is better. It improves the system. And so that's what we were able to do with the grant funding. And the media, and particularly WIBW, have been a tremendous partner of ours in the Amber program. So we want to thank you as well.
And we're pleased to do that. We're part of the facilitating getting some of the recordings and information out statewide.
Right.
For the end user, what might we notice in terms of, we might not know if we're getting it any faster, but is there something else with the technology that we might see a little bit of difference?
I don't think so. I think this is going to be totally invisible to the consumer. What you're going to have happen, though, is that alert is going to get to your phone quicker. And all of that is what's happening behind the scenes. The agents who work on Ambers will tell you that this is one of the most stressful things that they do, because they know that that child is in danger, and them getting that information out quickly is absolutely essential. You know, in the history of the Amber program here in Kansas, the Amber program has resulted in the return of 76 children back to their families. So even though it's high pressure, even though it's time critical, we know that Amber brings results. And so when your listeners, your viewers hear that alert on the phone, we really hope that they'll pay attention, they'll look at their surroundings, and they'll respond if they see something.
It is important information, mobilizing everybody to be part of the effort to bring kids home. So very important. You have been speaking with lawmakers in recent days, weeks, and months about the state of your headquarters building. It's in central Topeka, a former school building. What are you hoping to ask for, and what kind of timeline would we be looking at something to even happen?
We're having a conversation with legislators about getting a new headquarters building. We've been working on this for a while. An interesting thing about the building is I found, our staff found an appraisal that was done of the building in 1996. In 1996, that referred to it as functionally obsolete. It wasn't built to be a headquarters for a statewide law enforcement agency. And although the KBI has done a wonderful job over the years of doing the best they can with what they have, we really need a more efficient and a safer place from which to do the work that's so important to this state.
Which way are you leaning at? Do you want an entirely new building at an entirely new location, or are you looking at the possibility of staying where you are, whether you tear down, build new, or add and renovate?
We don't see a way to stay where we are and have it be an effective use of taxpayer dollars. One of the things we know about that building is it would take $86 million just to get it up to code. Now, where we go, whether that's to new construction or a remodel of existing space, everything is on the table from our perspective. What we need is a safe and efficient headquarters. How we do that and give the taxpayer the best value for their dollar, it's all open for discussion right now.
I do feel it worth adding for anyone who might be confused out there. The building on the Washburn campus that's not too very old, that is a lab. That is not the headquarters. Totally different.
Totally different. And then the lab will stay there. It will stay on the campus at Washburn University. But we need a new headquarters for our operational and administrative and information services parts of our organization.
You are a law enforcement agency, so I want to ask you about kind of the elephant in the room nationwide, the Trump administration and their directives when it comes to illegal immigrants and mandatory deportations. What communication have you had with the administration? What role may you or may you not be playing?
So the Attorney General and I have discussed this. We're definitely on the same page. There are bad folks out there doing bad things who are here illegally, and the ability to get them off the street sometimes equates to the ability to get them out of the country. We want that as a resource, and ICE is going to make that available to us. So our plan right now is to make a handful of our KBI agents available for training under what's called 287G authority, which means a small number of our agents will have the ability to help enforce federal immigration laws. To be clear, that will be a resource. It will not be a requirement. There's no discussion of sending KBI agents to the border. There's no discussion of turning the KBI into an immigration enforcement agency. There is, though, discussion of getting us more resources to better be able to do the job that we do now, which is investigating violent crime, crimes against children, public corruption, and drug organizations.
What message would you want to give to the public as they relate to their own local or state law enforcement in terms of the fear that people are going to be stopped and checked merely for the color of their skin or their appearance?
I can assure you that nobody at the KBI is going to be involved in anything like that. The immigration enforcement efforts that we're seeing are things that I believe we could all agree are necessary to keep our society safe. Our agency is not going to participate in anything that's going to shock anyone's conscience. That's not who we are, and it's not what we do.
Tony Mattivi, Director of the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, appreciate you being here. Thanks for the update.
Thank you, Melissa. Nice to see you.
Around Shawnee County, District Attorney Mike KDHE is our top cop. He visited the studio to look at the year ahead in the DA's office. Welcome to you.
Thank you, Melissa. Great to be back.
Well, let's look back, first of all, over the past several years, because we visited before. First of all, we had the pandemic, and we were catching up on a backlog from that. Yeah. Then we had the judicial cybersecurity incident of late 2023. We were catching up from that. Where do we stand right now in getting rid of those backlogs and really focusing on new cases that come in?
Don't forget construction in the courthouse, because that's been going on for a couple years now. So we've had a lot of interesting challenges present themselves, things outside of our control. And what I tell my staff, what I tell my team is, let's stay focused on our responsibility. Our core function is to prosecute cases, right? To treat defendants fairly and meet our victims with empathy and follow the law and apply it here impartially in Shawnee County. And I feel like, and I believe that we've really done a fair and consistent job of that through all of this. And, the best way to reference that is to actually look at numbers and metrics. And I can tell you, we looked back at last year, and our major felony unit, which handles all the most serious offenses you can consider. Most of our cases don't end up going to jury trial, but we have hundreds of serious felonies that get committed here in Shawnee County every year. A small percentage of them end up going to jury trial. We actually had 17 go, and of those 17 jury trials, we obtained convictions in all 17. And that tells me a couple things. That tells me that the team that I have in place is doing their job very well. But it tells me the partnerships we have with law enforcement are working at a high level, and it tells me the community is engaged in a really meaningful way. Because anytime law enforcement begins an investigation, it's in response to a community outreach, right? And at the end of the day, when these cases go to jury trial, it is the community sitting in the jury box which ultimately determines that outcome.
And that is what we're talking about. And so you want to have the right tools to be able to prosecute those law-abiding citizens who maybe aren't obeying the law, living by the same rules and regulations that the rest of us would think would make a good citizen. And so the legislature is here. Anything that you want to ask of them this session?
Yes, actually a few things, but which is not unusual for me. But this year in particular, my focus is on a bill around the purchase of sex. And so if I asked you if purchasing sex was a crime here in Kansas, you would probably say yes, it is. And you'd be right. But if I asked you if it was a felony, what would you say?
You would think it's a serious offense, but you're going to tell me it's not. So
yeah, well, it's not a felony yet, and so the purpose of the bill is to make it a felony. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to deter this kind of conduct. We don't want people buying sex, because when you come in and you buy sex, what are you doing? You're creating a marketplace for people that sell sex. And the studies, including by the Department of State, tell us that 60 to 80% of the people selling sex are actually sex traffickers, which we know to be people who will abuse others and force and coerce them into performing these sex acts, right? And so we have really strong penalties to hold the sex traffickers accountable, but we don't even have a felony to prevent people from buying sex. You got to be convicted of it as a misdemeanor and then do it again to make it a felony. And so why is this important? Well, we want to cut out the demand. We don't want sex traffickers coming to Kansas to set up shop, right? But the buyers keep buying. And so we have to enhance those penalties, and there's also provision there for education, right? Because a lot of this is just ignorance, they don't know. And that's half the benefit of making it a felony, because as you said, when it's a felony, everyone knows we're taking this seriously.
And so that is one thing that you'll be asking of the legislature. I was asking you prior, there are a lot of national headlines right now about what's happening with immigration enforcement, what perhaps local law enforcement's role might be in any of that, your office and any sort of involvement that you have or any directives you currently have regarding immigration and offenders who may or may not be in our community.
Yeah, I can tell you from personal experience, I have never received any kind of direction or request from the federal authorities related to the immigration issue specifically. What we talk about in terms of just communication, we'll have an offender maybe committing a serious felony who flees our jurisdiction and goes outside of the United States, usually to Mexico. And we have had times where the federal authorities are the ones that track them down and bring them back here to face justice here in Shawnee County. I've also sent people to prison and noted while I was making the arguments to send them to prison, there was an agent from ICE who was observing the proceedings, because if that person did not go to prison, right, they were there and prepared to take them.
Okay, so your role is justice for local citizens.
Correct.
Mike KDHE, a lot going on. Keep us up to date on what is happening throughout the year. Appreciate catching up with you.
I will. Thanks,
Thank
Melissa.
you. DA KDHE regularly visits our show, so we look forward to continuing to catch up with him in the weeks and months ahead. Let's talk some of those great fundraisers that happen every year as spring is just around the corner. One of those in the city of Topeka is Couture for Cancer, a very fashionable fundraiser. We like to say it benefits the American Cancer Society. Stephanie Wider is our local ACS rep. She visited the show with the co-chairperson for the event, Heather Grunnert. Couture for Cancer, Stephanie, for those who have not been, this is year 21.
Yes, year
Amazing.
21. I know, we're so excited. It gets better every year. And this year we've got some really cool things planned.
The short rundown is the event is what?
The event is a fundraiser for the American Cancer Society featuring a live and silent auction, but the most important part of the event is honoring and recognizing cancer survivors in the community that model outfits from local boutiques on a runway. So it's a runway show as well.
It is the most inspiring runway show you will ever see. Heather, you're the co-chair this year. Why did you decide to get involved?
Yes, I lost my mother-in-law 6 years ago to cancer, and to have a girls' night with my mom, I took her to the Couture one year when I had donated some products. We had the best time sitting on the runway, laughing, crying, buying lots of items, and we decided we were going to go back every year. And since then, I've been able to donate the signature drink. Last year's Pink Lady was very well received, so we have a new blackberry mojito to be named yet, but for this year we have
a blackberry mojito. What can we do? Okay, your suggestions are welcome.
Yes, yes.
But I imagine one of the most fun things you get to do is help find all these auction items.
Yes, there's great auction items. We have so many local and actually national people who donate a lot of things. One of the most recent things we got was a great painting of an angel that has lost her or gained her wings in heaven as a cancer victim. But we again have so many great items. You're going to want to come bid and bid high.
Yeah, bid high, bid often. So artwork, that's one of the
Yes.
things. What are some of the other pieces that have come in? Normally you bring them, but you said you've got so many, you're still organizing them, so you couldn't bring any this time.
Yes.
But you will closer to the event.
Yes, we will bring them next time, but we have a lot of handbags. That's a very popular item. Some beautiful jewelry that's been donated. We have some great items for the home, some clothing, just a variety of items.
Run
But we're
down
very
some of the
excited.
designers.
Well, we have Frances Valentine, Hobo, Lottie Vidney. We have, oh my goodness, there's just so many, Melissa. I can't remember.
I say that this is, so I haven't seen this all except for the very first year. So if this,
Yes.
this is my 20th year I'm seeing the
yes.
event, and I've always said that this is my education and passion because I look at the auction items and that's how I learn what's cool, what's hot, what's
Yeah.
trendy. So thank you for having this event. But when you think about all of the different reasons, there are different missions that you fund this year. I believe this year is it Hope House?
This year's actually transportation and
and
lodging. Yes.
lodging.
Yes.
Okay, so there are different places that the American can. How do they help with those things?
Yeah,
Transportation and
they
lodging.
can be a sponsor. So if somebody still wants to be a sponsor, they can give money, and we can actually put that towards those activities at the Cancer Society that help them when they are a victim, and using that I don't know, for their family or for their transportation. So there's lots of different ways to sponsor and help that. We also have the Raise the Paddle, which is always very successful, that will help those things also.
And that goes directly to the mission because that transportation can be a barrier.
It is, and we're very fortunate that the grants are provided to our local health systems, and then they're able to help those individuals that can't get to and from treatment.
So when does the auction open? Because as we put up the information, the event itself is from 4 to 7 on Saturday, March 1st at Townsite Ballroom right there downtown. You can get the tickets at topekacoutureforcancer.org. That's also where you can register to bid in the online silent auction. So there's a live auction that's exclusive to the event, but Stephanie, you don't need a ticket to bid in the silent auction.
No, you don't. And the live auction is going to open on Friday, February 21st.
The silent auction on
the
Friday.
silent auction. I'm so sorry.
That's well, you're getting everything straight in your head.
I know. Today's been a crazy day with this cold weather. But yes, the silent auction is going to open on Friday the 21st. And you don't need a ticket to bid on the silent auction. If you're not able to attend, which we hope that you will because it's going to be a great event, you can make arrangements to pick up your item after the event is over.
I love it. Ladies, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. I am so excited to be emceeing that event once again. Such a great cause. So remember, take a look and follow their website, their Facebook page, so that you can get signed on and take part in that auction. It is February, Heart Month. I'm recording this on Valentine's Day, the day of love, thinking about your heart. That is what the Kansas Department of Health and Environment is doing with the Healthy Hearts program. Brittany Van Winkle and Shane Berzer joined the talk show to let us know what they are able to do. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
So yeah, the Red Friday is a different meaning for you today.
Today,
Yes. Why is heart disease awareness so important, Brittany?
It is important because heart disease is the leading cause of death in the United States. So Heart Month is a great opportunity to educate yourself and others about some things that you can do to keep your heart healthy.
And there are a lot of things that we can do. I imagine, Shane, you're going to tell us this starts with diet and exercise.
It does. It's not always the fun answer.
No, it's not, but that's okay.
Yeah,
it can be.
Right, and that's one of the things is you need to find ways to get active. And obviously eating healthy is one of the biggest things that you can do. But look for little things like walking your dog, playing with your kids, doing things on a daily basis and adding activity as the week goes on. And if you ramp up slowly, by the end of the year, you can greatly increase your physical activity.
You're saying that we don't need to go out tomorrow and run a 5K if we've never run a step in our lives?
No, we're not all marathon athletes and we shouldn't try to be. It's just about creating healthy habits that you can implement on a weekly basis.
And I've often heard, Brittany, the advice to know your numbers. What does that mean and how does that relate to heart disease and cardiovascular health?
Yes, absolutely. So knowing your numbers usually refers to knowing your numbers when it comes to blood pressure. So knowing what a normal blood pressure is, knowing what a higher blood pressure is, knowing when to see a doctor about that blood pressure, and knowing that a normal blood pressure is 120/80.
Why are we always so scared to see doctors, right? Because they might tell us we need to do something. So you guys work for the Healthy Hearts program. What is that? What do you guys do? Just this, right? Raising awareness.
Pretty much, but we also have some other programming that we do. We have a Healthy Heart Ambassador program, which is a 4-month-long program that teaches individuals how to take their own blood pressure, where they also get support from a coach, and they also learn how to eat healthy.
So, and like you said, Shane, the eating healthy, all of that is just like little changes we can make along the way.
Yeah, it's just stepping stones to try to implement more healthy habits and to mitigate some of the unhealthy things that we're already doing.
So in addition to simply raising awareness, are there some outreach things that the Healthy Hearts program can do if people are interested in learning more?
We have lots of information available online. As far as educational opportunities, the Healthy Hearts Ambassador program is the best way.
Is this simply a matter of our genetics, or is this something everyone is at risk for?
Everyone is at risk. You're not defined wholly by your genetics. Certainly some people are at a greater risk starting out than others. But the greatest change that you can make is the change from the activities that you partake in. And so you shouldn't try to use your genetics as a crutch. You should try to improve upon where you're at right now.
Very good. Is there any one food you'd recommend people add to their diet or remove from their diet? What are we learning?
Well, it's always good to limit your salt intake.
Okay.
Add more fruits and veggies, of course. We've all heard that before. Also, try to avoid processed foods. And add more whole grains to your diet.
That is so hard to talk about when we're leading into a weekend where there's a lot of food to be had, and a lot of it is high in salt. Do you guys have any little healthy tips, any tricks that what you guys are going to do Super Bowl Sunday to make sure you guys stay heart healthy?
I think it's important to just try to practice moderation. We're not trying to tell anyone that they can't have something, that they have to totally cut out a food group. But if you say add an apple to a meal and thus take away a fried food, that's a good way to step.
And I suppose we also shouldn't complain if we have to park at the far end of the parking lot.
No, use those opportunities to get a little bit of a walk-in. My grandfather always says that park farther away because your legs work.
That is true, and we should be grateful that our legs work. If somebody wants more information, where can we find the resources that you all have available?
Yeah, we have them on the KDHE Cardiovascular Disease and Stroke page.
So just kdheks.gov-ish, I think that's what it is. I do have the link. You guys sent it to me, and I am going to put that on WIBW.com, so there's a direct link to the cardiovascular. So it's not just heart attack. We're talking heart attack, stroke, all those things.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, that is where you'll find the information. Thank you both for being here and letting us know why we are wearing red today. So especially during February, but no matter what month or day it is, always listen to your heart. We want you to stay healthy. So glad you could be with us today on the podcast. Remember, you can see the videos from these conversations as well as all of our guests on our WIBW.com page. All of the segments are posted there. You can also find them on our WIBW 13 News YouTube channel. Be sure to please click subscribe while you're at it. And of course, I also post the links every day along with our studio selfies on my Facebook page, WIBW Melissa Bruner. Stay warm and safe out there, everyone. Until next time, we'll see you on the Red Couch.